So next up tonight we have a nationally syndicated cartoonist, author and journalist, legendary syndicated cartoonist, author and cartoonist, Dr. James Whitworth.
Hello everyone. I'm really not sure how you follow that. I'm going to kill my agent. So, I just want to say thank you for coming as well. Thank you for coming out on what is a, grey, miserable, wet day. It's enough to make you think you're in Lancashire. But we're not, we're in Sheffield. And what I want to do is tell you a Sheffield story.
I think I might be the clicker.
Okay. So, yes, I've been asked to speak a little bit about myself. So, I am James Whitworth, and I am a cartoonist, which does sound a little bit like alcoholics Anonymous, but I'm not that anonymous. So, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me, a little bit about what it's like to be a cartoonist, what that involves, and how that happened. So, one of the questions I'm asked most of all is, how do you become a cartoonist? How did you become a cartoonist? Well, I'm pausing dramatically now for the. Let me see if I can do this.
Sorry, James.
Thank you. So there we go. So this fine specimen of a man on the left, and not unlike Sheffield Forum was a relic of the distant past, is me, and the person on the right is my father. And my father was a cartoonist. Yeah. So when I tell people that, they go, oh, right. Because, it's a bit like your father being a butcher and you going to work in the shop. Well, it's not like that at all. But what it did do was it meant I grew up thinking being a cartoonist was a normal job. I thought that's what people did. I used to watch Tony Hart on TV. Take heart, and I'd go to school the next day, and I'd say to people, "Oh, did you try that thing he did? Did you do that?" And they'd say, "No." Well, why not? I said, "Well, I don't have any charcoal pencil and pastel paper. What kind of house do you live in?" So what he did do was he showed me that it was something you could do. So, come on, next one. So there it is, working away, and that's one of his cartoons. And the context for that is that Sheffield Wednesday weren't particularly good at the time, and the first team had been taken up onto the moors to toughen up. And the sheep are saying, I've been roughing it for years, we're still no good at football. Now, it's a good cartoon, I like that, but it's not my favourite. My favourite cartoon of my dad's sort of stands for what I have inherited from him. I may have inherited a sort of modest amount of drawing talent, but much more significant, I've inherited a taste for bad jokes. I cannot resist a bad joke. Editors, not always a fan, but I love them. So this next one,
This one here.
this is when Don Valley was being built. That £100,000 storm water sewer is going to be a big drain on our Yeah, that's the sound I want. That and the sound of people standing up and leaving. I mean, it's terrible. It is a terrible joke. But I am... Now, I can't compare, obviously, with Kate. But I have perseverance too. And I've persevered to get a particular cartoon topic published.
Sorry.
This one?
Yeah.
Ah, look at this. Yay! So, here are two relics from my childhood. The Ladybird book of newspapers. Yeah? And Sherlock Holmes. I loved Sherlock Holmes stories as a child. I still love Sherlock Holmes. So, I wanted to draw a Sherlock Holmes cartoon, and I did. No one would buy it. So this is my perseverance. Now, I am here creating a little bit of dramatic tension because I'm not going to show you that cartoon till the very end. Because if I show you that cartoon now, you will all head for the bar. So, I wanted to be a cartoonist because I'd seen people do it. Well, I'd seen my dad do it, and it looked like a great job. My father works for the Sheffield Morning Telegraph, which for those who don't know is Sheffield's morning newspaper, and he worked for them from the 50s all the way into the 80s. When I was about 4 years old, he took me into the office one day. He worked nights, but he took me in the day and he plonked me down on a chair in front of a typewriter. That's how long ago it was. And I was merrily bashing away on the keys, quite happy. And then, suddenly, I heard this noise. And this noise sort of went, oh. I thought, oh, that's a bit weird. So I pushed myself back from the desk, because the chair had wheels, and I figured out that the noise was coming from underneath the desk. And as I pushed my way back, I saw under the desk a sub-editor who had spent rather too long in the pub at lunchtime. And I thought, I want this job. So it's important to have goals and motivation. So that's all I ever really wanted to do. But of course, you do come up with a problem: is how do you become a cartoonist? There are no courses. You know, no one tells you how to do this. So I just started to draw, and when I was about 10, I created a list of characters, frankly stolen from the Smurfs. But I had happy man and sad man and so on. I had Invisible Man, who was my favourite one to draw. Now, this is Osbert Lancaster. Osbert Lancaster said, nothing ages so quickly as the apt comment. In other words, if you do topical jokes, which is what I do, they have an incredibly short shelf life. So why would you want to do that? You know, where's your legacy? But I thought I'd show you this. This is an Osbert Lancaster cartoon from 1965. At all costs, we must stay out of Europe, even if we have to borrow their money to do it. This shows you one of the great things about cartooning, is things keep coming round. Things keep coming round. So, I went to university, I did an English degree, and I left university and I still wasn't a cartoonist. Because I still couldn't figure out how you actually became one. So I did lots of other things. I went to work. My first job was in a record store in Sheffield, a Virgin record store, because I love music. It's one of my great passions. It wasn't quite being a cartoonist, but it was, you know, it was a little rock and roll, you know. And on my first day, someone had told me the problem with record stores is the staff are really rude. You know, very snobbish. If anyone's ever seen High Fidelity, that's kind of what it's like. But I thought, no, it's going to be fine. I was standing on the counter on my first day, and the customer came up to the person next to me and said, excuse me, said, do you have the new Phil Collins album? To which this person went, why? I quite like this album. I quite like it. So what eventually though, I did start to draw cartoons, and I actually sold my first cartoon. That was a fantastic moment. And gradually, as you do, the way you become a cartoonist, by the way, is you spend years sending your work off and it's rejected. Rejection is absolutely par for the course. The most successful cartoonists in this country today sell 1 out of 10 cartoons. That's what it's like. It does teach you to be rather stubborn and keep going. And I managed to become the official cartoonist for Record Store Day, which was brilliant, because Lisa, my wife, knows that we don't have enough records. And there's other things like shoes can make room for them. So, I got a job on the Sheffield Star. I'd initially drawn 3 cartoons a week and eventually every day. And it's a great job. Now, this is a cartoon about Sheffield trees. I want to talk to you about Sheffield trees. Now, before I do, can I ask you to put your hand up if you work for the Sheffield City Council? great, because I have been asked to say that refunds are not available. So, I just want to tell you about this, because it's a great Sheffield story, I think. Because it reflects the passion and the creativity of people in Sheffield. For those of you who don't know, back in 2015, Sheffield City Council decided it would be a good idea to cut down trees in the greenest city in Europe. Now, not everyone was happy about this, but frankly, it was not a big deal. So this was just a very sort of run-of-the-mill cartoon, really, from the time. They were cutting down the trees, and you know, there we go. Some people weren't happy. It wasn't front-page news by any means. Now, another question: anyone here work in public relations? Good. Because this is an essay now in how not to do public relations. So, it's a little bit of press coverage, it's drifting away, it's going, they're kind of getting what they want, the council, that they're going to cut down the trees. Then, one morning, at about 5 o'clock, my phone rings. Now, you know it's not good when your phone rings at 5 o'clock in the morning. Look at the phone, and it's the news editor at the Star. The news editor says, "You will not believe what the hell," he did not use the word hell, "is happening on Rustlings Road." And what was happening was that the council and the council's subcontractors had turned up at 5 o'clock in the morning, in the dark, with chainsaws to cut trees down, and they turned up with the police. The police were knocking on people's doors to tell them to stay in the house because they were cutting trees down. Can you imagine what it's like to have the police knock on your door at 5 o'clock in the morning? What you would think. So this, of course, instantly explodes into front page news. This is a huge story. And of course, people say to me often, "You don't like the council much, do you?" You know, you're not going to get one of those stars on the floor outside the town hall. I love the council. I love the council. They make my life so easy. Now, this story made the front page of the Star, made the front page of the Telegraph. It then started to get picked up by the regional press. So the Ox Post did a story on it. Look North turned up. Calendar were there. And so on and so on. It was a public relations disaster. But then a little bit of time passed and it started to fade again. So just when you think it can't get any worse and the worst is over, the police arrest a pensioner, a female pensioner, for blowing, and prepare yourselves, a plastic children's trumpet. This clip is on YouTube. I go and look. It's astonishing. They arrest a woman, a pensioner, for blowing a trumpet. I mean, talk about all your Christmases coming at once. So what happens here, of course, is this now goes national. So this is on the One Show. The BBC News is picking this up nationwide. It then starts to appear in international press. The New York Times run the story on Sheffield City Council. So, PR, not good, brilliant if you're a cartoonist. Brilliant. I spent about 6 months, I mean, to be fair, I never wanted to draw a tree again. But I spent 6 months drawing tree cartoons, and look, there I am. What the protesters did, which was very nice, was they actually named the trees on Rustlings Road after people who had supported the campaign or journalists who had written about, or in my case, drawn about. And there's me with my tree chains, looking very happy. And what a lovely thing to do. Now, I'm a professional journalist. I am unbiased. I will not be swayed by this. This is a very nice gesture, but I, of course, remain completely impartial and have no opinion myself. And then the bastards cut my Tribune. Still love them. So, you know, what a wonderful story. And that's the kind of thing you do as a cartoonist. Now, I don't just draw cartoons for the Sheffield Star, because, you know, I kind of want to eat. So I draw cartoons for all kinds of things. I've illustrated books. And this is not a joke, this is true, although it sounds like a joke, I've just finished 12 cartoons about the menopause. I obviously am an expert on the menopause. And now provide 4 cartoons a month about the menopause. This is not easy, trust me. And also, you know, Boris. So, if you love the council, you've got to love the government, haven't you? How do you out-satirise people like Boris Johnson? It's when you think you're being as ridiculous as possible, they just go. So this is the front page of the Star. Now, it's here. I mean, we can remember this, you know, your hands, face and space. You know, and also, talk about truth, I never want to draw a mask again. But this is here to illustrate one of the problems with being a cartoonist. I'm quite proud of this in a sort of perverse way, is that you do get criticised a lot. And dare go on, Sheffield Forum. But you do get criticised a lot. Are people writing, or, you know, these days, email into the newspaper, and sometimes they say nice things, other times not so much. This, though, I was called by Nancy, the editor of the Star, to say, "You've made it, James. You've made it. You have been accused of being a left-wing, woolly, sandal-wearing, plant-consuming, left-wing liberal, and as a fascist, Nazi sympathising, right-wing moron about the same cartoon." Now, you know, I'm really, I take that as a badge of honour. You know, so some people say you can't please all people all the time. I please no one. Sometimes you offend people. I hope you don't find this offensive. Now, offence is a serious subject, and, you know, I'm not Jimmy Carr. You know, and I don't go out of my way to offend people, but, you know, you will sometimes offend people. There's I don't think it's here, I don't think I put it in, but I did one about Black Lives Matter and taking the knee, and I just had like a relatively elderly man saying, "I'm sorry I'm late, I took the knee and it took me 20 minutes to stand up again." Now, if you find that offensive, I do apologise, but only a bit. Relationships. This in no way is based on my marriage. That's from Prospect magazine, which is a great political magazine. As is this. I think it's a bit of a slow burn. That's a slow burn, but it's a personal favourite. Okay, and this is when it was announced that the next Doctor Who was going to be female. Now, what I like about this one is that you may tell that this is from the Cartoon Awards. Yes, it's a thing. Now, the Cartoon Awards is a very serious thing where some of the top cartoonists in the country and me go along to a venue in London and in no way consume a lot of alcohol. Yeah, so there's me with Matt, Daily Telegraph's Matt, and that's told Graham from the Yorkshire Post. Lovely event, lovely to be recognised, and importantly, I think it's important because I do believe, and of course I'm biased, that cartoons are important. Cartoons, satire, laughing at those who for some crazy reason think they somehow know what's best for us. That's what cartoonists do when they're at their best. And also, that's what cartoonists do when they're at their best. So I just want to finish off with this. This was the front page of the Star from New Year's Eve. And look, I get to to my favourite place in the world, Sheffield. You know, I am a big supporter of all things Sheffield. I think this is a wonderful city. I think it's a city full of creativity. I also think it's a very humorous city. It's a city that has produced wondrous music. You know, from the power pop of the Human League and ABC to Present Company, of course, and things that I don't even understand rhyme. But I'm assured that lots of people do like that stuff. So yes, it's a great city. There it is, hopefully with a great future. And of course, it's a city that personifies perseverance. Despite what the council do, we're still here. We're still trying to make the best of our lives. So, did I mention perseverance? Remember Sherlock Holmes? After years and years, I finally sold my Sherlock Holmes cartoon. Incredibly, I sold it to Private Eye. Now, Private Eye bought a lot of my work over the years, but they only buy things that are quite good. But they, for some reason, Ian's lot was beyond his Christmas due, and we bought this. So, to finish off with a level of sort of suspense that is really not justified whatsoever, here is my Sherlock Holmes cartoon, which took 15 years to sell. Thank you.